Welcome to VANISH exe, Vayori Yamaguci, the other half. This video details the life and origins of Vayori Yamaguci.
Vayori Yamaguci, date of birth, April 18, 2056. Origins, Kyoto, Japan. Vayori was born into a world of quiet isolation, the product of a closely guarded secret that threatened to shatter two separate worlds. In the winter of 2055, Michael Yamaguchi was deep in a month-long Arasaka Black Ops deployment, ghosts in the machine doing corporate wet work. For Rei, her gilded cage in Koga felt more suffocating than ever. During a rare excursion to Kyoto to secure traditional medical supplies and techs for her dojo, Rei crossed paths with Akira Saito. Akira was no corporate suit or traditional street goon. He was a rogue data archivist, a legendary deep-net cowboy who mapped the digital ruins left behind by Bartmoss's data crash. For Rei, Akira was a window into a world without walls, completely divorced from the looming shadow of Arasaka and the bloody trauma of her childhood. Their brief, passionate affair lasted less than a month before the guilt of her devotion to Michael forced Rei to sever all ties. She stood at the Kyoto bullet train terminal, rain soaking her hair, looking at Akira one last time. "This must be the end, Akira. We don't speak, we don't look back. If Michael finds out, Arasaka won't just kill you, they'll erase the memory of you," she whispered, her voice tight, traditional mask firmly back in place. Akira just pulled his collar up against the chill, his eyes flashing a dull, neon blue as he jacked into the local data stream. "Data doesn't lie, Rei. But secrets? Secrets have a half-life. Safe travels back to your cage. I have a feeling you'll regret this. But if it's what you feel you need to do, then do it. I hope you find your way back out of that hell you pretend is a life." 9 months later, in a private, unregistered clinic in the neon-drenched underbelly of Kyoto, Vayori was born. Knowing the lethal precision of her husband Michael, Rei falsified the birth registry, giving Vayori her own family name, Yamaguchi, disguising the lineage as a distant cousin's orphan child, and left her in the sole custody of Akira. Rei returned to her life with Michael and a then 2-year-old Aoki, burying the sin so deep it never once surfaced. Aoki grew up completely oblivious to the fact that she had a half-sister living just a bullet train ride away. Unlike Aoki, who grew up with the physical discipline of Shirinji Kempo and the tactical paranoia of a corporate assassin father, Vayori's childhood was entirely digital. Akira Saito was a distant, eccentric father, consumed by the shifting architecture of the net. He viewed the physical world as a slow, decaying illusion, and taught Vayori to read code before she could properly speak. Their home in Kyoto was a chaotic labyrinth of cooling fans, holographic projectors, and dissected servers. By age 8, while Aoki was learning how to throw knives from her mother, Vayori was sitting on a stack of burnt-out mainframe towers, bypassing local municipal ice, just to watch old, uncensored anime streams from the pre-data crash eras. Akira would watch her from across the room, puffing on a cheap synth cigar while tinkering with bargain bin tech. "Look at that," Akira would chuckle, pointing a grease-stained finger at her monitor. "The Corps think they own the sky because they put satellites up there. But the net belongs to the ghosts who know how to walk through the firewalls. Remember that, kiddo? Don't ever let a suit tell you what's real." Tragedy struck Vayori early, though it lacked the explosive violence of a car bomb. In 2068, when Vayori was 12, Akira's obsessive deep-net diving caught up with him. He breached a highly classified, dormant data fortress belonging to a defunct subsidiary of Kangtao. A counter-hacked data burst. A lethal, localized neural fryer surged back through his cyberdeck. Vayori walked into the server room to find her father slumped over his terminal, brain-dead, his optics permanently burned out, smoke drifting from his neural jacks. She didn't cry. She just walked over, pulled the master drive out of his deck and whispered, "Stupid old man. Told you Kangtao plays dirty." Inheriting his vast, encrypted digital archives, Vayori was forced to grow up instantly. She didn't have a megacorp to adopt her like Aoki did. Instead, she used her father's identity, spoofing demons, to trick the Kyoto Education Board into believing she was still under legal adult guardianship, effectively living as a ghost in her own apartment for years. Enrolling in the elite Kyoto Prefectural Cyber Technical Academy, under a scholarship funded by her father's hidden estate, Vayori stood out as a quiet, intensely observant prodigy. She despised the petty corporate posturing of her classmates, who all aspired to sell their souls to corporate giants like Tanaka or Arasaka. The turning point of her youth occurred during her junior year. A popular, wealthy student named Junji, the son of a high-ranking Kyoto politician, had been systematically blackmailing a scholarship student from a lower-income district, threatening to erase her academic records using his father's corporate credentials unless she complied with his demands of drug-fueled sex. The girl, utterly broken, attempted to take her own life in the school's hydroponic gardens. The next day in class, Junji sat at his desk, smirking, showing his chums the girl's frantic, crying text messages on his holophone. Vayori leaned across the aisle, her face an unreadable slate. "You think that's funny, Junji? Making someone push the flatline button just because you can?" Vayori asked, her voice dangerously calm. Junji sneered, flicking his gold-plated neural link. "Watch your mouth, Yamaguchi. My dad owns the grid this school runs on. One word from me, and you're back on the streets, scrubbing grease off cargo AVs." She was a nobody. "Just like you. Keep that in mind next time you think challenging me is a preem idea." Vayori just smiled, a cold, sharp expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Right. The grid. I must have forgot about that, Junji. My mistake." That night, Vayori initiated a complete, multi-layered deep dive into Junji's personal comms, his father's financial ledgers, and the family's private archives. By sunrise, she hadn't just found the blackmail material. She uncovered a massive, multi-million eddy embezzlement scheme connecting Junji's father to illegal human testing facilities run by local biotech syndicates that worked in conjunction with the Night City offices of Biotechnica. Rather than going to the corrupt police, Vayori weaponized the data. During lunch the next day, the entire cafeteria went dead silent as every single screen, holo projector, and student optic link was overridden. Junji's voice, raw and arrogant, boomed through the speakers detailing his blackmail, split-screened with his father's encrypted financial sheets, highlighting the illegal human testing transactions. Junji dropped his tray, his face turning an asymmetric shade of pale as the school alarms began to blare. Vayori walked right past his trembling heap, leaned in close, and whispered, "Looks like your dad's grid just hit a short circuit, chum. Have fun in the corporate rehabilitation camps." By nightfall, Junji's father was in Arasaka handcuffs. Junji was permanently disgraced, and Vayori's name never appeared on a single system log. She wasn't a criminal, and she wasn't a mercenary for hire. She was a person who knew what it was to struggle, to hurt in silence while pretending she felt nothing in hopes to fool herself. When she thought of that exploited girl, she thought of how easy it would be for someone to exploit her the same way. Vayori graduated near the top of her class in 2074, specializing in advanced neural system architecture and cryptographic decoding. Upon graduation, while cleaning out the deepest heavily encrypted physical drives her father had left behind in his server room drives, she finally had the processing power and high-grade cyberdeck she needed, and the demons to match. She forged a purchase sheet from Kang Tao to Tetratronic to get the cyberdeck. The demons she either crafted herself or hacked out of subroutines via breach protocols on the net. Once she finally cracked it, she hit a hidden partition titled REI Koga. Spending 3 straight days burning through layers of military-grade encryption that dear old dad surrounded this file in, Vayori finally broke through. Inside, she found old encrypted hololetters between her father and Ray Yamaguchi, medical logs detailing her own birth, and a shocking revelation. She had an older half-sister named Aoki Vanessa Yamaguchi. The discovery shook Vayori to her core. She sat back in her chair, the blue light of the terminal bathing her face as she rubbed her temples. "No fucking way. I have a sister? All this time I thought I was the only ghost in this family." She immediately turned her formidable net-running skills toward tracking down the Yamaguchi name. Her search led her to a cold, brief Arasaka corporate casualty report from Night City, dated October 2070, a vehicle explosion in Watson that killed Michael and Ray Yamaguchi. Grief-stricken for what could only be viewed as strangers, but driven by an insatiable need for closure, Vayori dug deeper into the Arasaka personnel registries. She discovered that Aoki had survived, had been raised by the Arasaka Academy, and had climbed the ranks to become a high-level operative in Arasaka Counter Intelligence. Determined to find her sister, Vayori packed her life into a single tactical crate, purchased a high-end, custom-built cyberdeck exact to her specs, and boarded a suborbital flight to Night City in early 2075. She chose not to join a gang, align with a fixer, or run standard gigs for eddies. Instead, she set up a heavily shielded, off-grid net-running nest in an abandoned, flooded server basement on the industrial edge of Arroyo, Santo Domingo. To fund her operations and keep her gear updated with the latest corporate-grade tech, Vayori established a highly sophisticated, independent extortion and information brokerage grid. She didn't steal money from everyday citizens. She targeted the apex predators. She tapped into the private AV comms of corporate executives, mapped the hidden affairs of night city politicians, and captured compromising braindances of minor-level city center celebrities. During one of her early operations, she caught a mid-level soap opera star, a real vanity case named Jackson, deep in a massive glitter addiction, buying from an unstable maelstrom dealer. She intercepted his personal comms right as he was leaving the Totentons. She patched directly into his internal audio link. "Who the fuck is this? Get off my secure channel." Jackson panicked, looking around the dimly lit alleyway. Vayori's voice ran through his head, modulated and smooth like velvet. "Relax, Jackson. Just a fan. I have a lovely 4K braindance of you buying 3 kilos glitter from a guy with a red optical implant. I think the studio would find it career ending. Really think they are just going to fire you and cast someone else for the role? Probably be easier to make it seem like an overdose or a car accident and rake in the eddies on memorial merch, right? Let's make a deal. 50,000 eddies transferred to the secure account on your screen, and the file goes into the virtual incinerator. Consider it a donation for keeping the peace." "You're fucking extorting me? Do you know who my agent is?" Jackson screamed into the empty air. "I know your agent, your bank routing number, and your real birth name, Choom. You have 60 seconds before I hit the upload to N54 button. Tick-tock, Jaxie baby, tick-fucking-tock." The eddies hit her account in 40 seconds flat. But her main objective remained unfulfilled. Every time Vayori attempted to trace Aoki within the Arasaka network, she hit a brick wall. Since Aoki's promotion to Arasaka Counter Intelligence Division 3, her sister had become a complete ghost. Aoki's data profile was actively masked by military-grade ICE, shifting algorithms, and the protective shadow of Hanako Arasaka herself. Vayori realized that Aoki wasn't just a corporate employee, she was an elite intelligence shadow. To find her sister, Vayori couldn't just knock on Arasaka's digital front door. She would have to systematically dismantle the secrets of the people around Aoki, tracing the digital wake her sister left behind in the dark underbelly of Corpo Tower. Vayori realized that Aoki wasn't just a corporate employee, she was an elite intelligence shadow. To find her sister, Vayori couldn't just knock on Arasaka's digital front door. She would have to systematically dismantle the secrets of the people around Aoki, tracing the digital wake her sister left behind in the dark underbelly of Corpo Tower. It is now October 2077. Vayori sits in her neon-lit sanctuary, her neural jacks pulsing, listening to the static of Night City's deepest networks. She knows her sister is out there in the corporate fog, and the truth is what she needs to, until she pulls her into the light. But how? It wasn't always the case, but Vayori grew to be quite the looker. Back in Kyoto, her beauty had been masked by oversized tech hoodies and the pale, sickly glow of monitor screens. But after graduation, she realized that deep diving into the net for 18 hours a day, submerged in freezing ice baths, and trapped in sedentary runner chairs, was leaving her physical frame weak, brittle, and complacent. Vayori was a person of action, not complacency. She started splitting her time between remote hacking juicy access points and keeping her body in just as pristine condition as the top-shelf cyberware she obtained. It's a funny thing when someone doesn't know they're beautiful. Vayori was no exception. She was completely, utterly clueless about it. So when she landed in Night City, the sheer volume of attention she received compared to the rigid, reserved societal nature of Kyoto was alarming. Gonks would catcall her from the trash heaps of Watson. Low-life tiger claws would outright attempt to elicit sex in crowded markets in Kabuki. At first, it disgusted her. But then, the netrunner mind took over. She analyzed the data, looked at the behavioral patterns of the city's elite, and had an epiphany. It was just another exploit. Physical hacking. If these high-level corporate suits and brain-dead executives found her so attractive, she could use that aesthetic veneer as a Trojan horse. She could social engineer her way into high-society environments and exclusive corporate mixers. Places an unaffiliated street runner with a fresh new face in Santo Domingo could never dream of entering. Maybe even get close to the megacorp elite, who actually knew or worked with Aoki. Her first major target was Daiichi Kurosawa, a mid-level regional director for Arasaka's logistics division in Night City. Kurosawa was a notorious vanity case who frequented the Glass Pavilion, a hyper-exclusive, invite-only corporate lounge floating 30 floors above city center. Vayori spent 3 days spoofing a high-end digital invitation, tailored a stunning, traditional-meets-neo-kitsch dress to hide her neural port overlays, and walked into the lounge looking like a high-class corporate heiress fresh off a suborbital flight from Tokyo. Within 20 minutes, Kurosawa was hooked, line and sinker. He bought her a glass of real, non-synthetic champagne that tasted like battery acid to Vayori, but she kept her traditional, polite smile firmly locked in place. They sat at a secluded corner booth overlooking the neon skyline. Kurosawa leaned in close, his cyber optics whirring as he tried to scan her, only to hit the high-grade passive scrambling ice Vayori had woven into her jewelry. "You're a mystery, Vayori," Kurosawa purred, his voice dripping with arrogance as he adjusted his tailored corporate suit jacket. "My scanner can't even lock a corporate ID on you. A girl like you doesn't just appear in Night City without a pedigree. Who's your backer? Biotech Logistical? Kang Tao?" Vayori laughed softly, tilting her head with practiced innocence. "Let's just say my family keeps their data closely guarded, Mr. Kurosawa. I prefer to let my work speak for itself. Though, I hear Arasaka hasn't been keeping their own data very secure lately. Word on the deep net is that Counter Intel has a few leaks." Vance let out a sharp, scoffing laugh, swirling his drink. "Leaks? Please. Counter Intel is a meat grinder right now. Arlo's got his division locked down like a maximum security black site. Nobody gets in or out without a full neural scrub." Kurosawa leaned in even closer, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, eager to impress the stunning woman in front of him with his insider knowledge. "Though, if you want real ghosts, you should look at Division 3. There's a girl up there, Aoki. Absolute ice queen. Hanako's pet. Protected and groomed by the princess herself. I had to send her team some gear for a field op one time. Year ago maybe. Couldn't even get it delivered. And follow proper protocol, cause her name was on the shipping manifest. Fucking preem." He scoffed as if disgusted, but impressed at the same time. Maybe even a little jealous. Vayori's heart did a violent, erratic thud against her ribs, but her facial muscles didn't trace a single micro-expression. She took a slow sip of her champagne. "Aoki? Sounds like street slang. Surely a megacorp doesn't employ people who use mononyms." "Oh, it's a real name," Vance smirked, completely unaware that he was walking right into a digital bear trap. "Yamaguchi, but good luck finding her on any public roster. I tried to route a logistical security clearance through her division last week for a Santo Domingo transport, and the authorization came back signed by an encrypted proxy." The booze had clearly begun to take hold of Kurosawa. "He's a chatty little fucker," Vayori thought to herself. Counter Intel Division 3, Arasaka, Arlo, Field Ops, Shipping Manifest, security clearances from the Logistics Division and proxy use. I can work with that. Kurosawa reached into his pocket, pulling out a sleek, gold-plated Arasaka corporate data shard. He slid it across the table, his fingers lingering near hers. "Tell you what, that shard has the encrypted routing protocols for Counter Intel's sub-level communication relays. I wasn't supposed to keep it after the audit, but a woman of your exquisite taste might appreciate the architecture. Maybe we can discuss it further at my apartment in North Oak." Vayori looked down at the gold shard resting on the tabletop. Her first real piece of hard data. A direct line toward the sister she thought was dead. She picked up the shard, slipping it effortlessly into her dress line, and stood up. She gave Vance a cold, devastating smile that left him completely paralyzed in his seat. "You've been incredibly helpful, Mr. Vance," Vayori whispered, leaning down just close enough for him to smell her perfume. "But I think your security clearance is just expired." Before he could even process the words, Vayori turned and melted into the crowd of corporate elites, leaving the executive alone in the booth. She gave a half-turn of her head to see if he was going to give chase like the desperate little puppy he was. As if she was scripting her own reality, he stumbled up from his booth and began walking towards her as she shifted through the crowd. Vayori changed her direction as his line of sight was broken. She activated her new optical camo and slipped into the stairwell. By the time she hit the ground floor, she was already sliding the gold shard into her cyberdeck, her eyes flashing a dangerous, triumphant blue as she began to tear down the encryption. "Where are you, sister? Let's see what kind of trail you really have."
Thank you for watching VANISH exe, written and virtually photographed by Nixie.